This is day 5 of the September 94 7-day retreat in Springwater. How cool the air. Memories of fall coming up. Plane humming and birds chirping. And looking at the trees, they're still all green. Only here and there, a speck of orange or red. The thread, the red thread, winding through retreat life is, isn't it? What is the sense of self? Yesterday the group discussion started with that question. What is the sense of separation? This most of the time, so all-enveloping feeling of me and my life, my past, my present, my future, with all the feelings and emotions and entanglements, pains and pleasures that go with it. What is at the bottom of it? It has been expressed and talked about in meetings and touched upon in previous talks. Why do I feel so self-conscious? So narcissistic, someone said this morning. Here it is abating a bit now on day 5, but the fear when I go back in my daily life, this constant, look at me, see me. The oppressive feeling of not in touch, not in communication with people. One person mentioning it just set in last night. The same old shit. Not able to like anyone when that happens. The fears, for a moment there is freedom, a sense of freedom and here-ness and now-ness. Nothing special, but the thought arising, will this last for me? Or will I fall into the same traps? Not knowing what is best to me and constantly perusing, printout after printout of what I could do, what I could be, how my life could be better or worse. The wanting, we devoted a whole talk, I believe, to wanting. Arising from where? And fearing coming out of what? There are all these different layers in which we exist. Superficial layers and deeper layers of fears and wanting. All connected somehow or other with memory. Or are some of our wants intrinsic, biological? We won't deal with that right now. One person mentioned it last night in the group meeting. After it had been said that the baby is still without a sense of self, someone said the baby is just full of it, wanting drink, food, warmth, care and attention at any time, no sense of consideration for the others who are sleeping. Wow! We're talking right now about the wanting and fearing coming out of inculcated memories, verbal or non-verbal, of being insufficient, not good enough, lacking, not meeting standards, approval, not being loved, and wanting to fill that painful inner emptiness of insufficiency, not good enough. Not loved enough. Fearing it will never happen, that we will be sufficient, that we will be adequate, that we will be lovable, that we will be contented. Deep-seated feeling of discontent with the way we are, the way we think we are, and project that to what we think is the outside world. Let's try in this talk not to become abstract and theoretical, but remain with what is palpable, either going on right now or as vivid memory about feeling and thinking about ourselves, and so seemingly locked into that network of I, me, self, mine consciousness. What will the others think of me? What are they thinking of me? Do they like me? I don't like the others. They are apart. I feel separate and alienated. Don't quite know why, but I do. I'm not talking personally. I'm talking all of us. One person mentioning yesterday in the group meeting, walking along the path, and suddenly the sound of plane and crickets, so overwhelmingly intrusive here, and the fear arising, I will be drowned in this. I will disappear. What is this I that is afraid to be drowned, that is afraid not to be loved, that is convinced of its insufficiency, suffering from its narrowness? And wanting to be better, to have better circumstances, better people around. the ideal mate, who will love one and care for one unconditionally. Feeling hurt when someone criticizes what I have done or what I am doing, how I am. The pain of hurt. To whom does it happen? I could say to this organism, because the organism is manifesting very feelable sensations in the stomach or in the solar plexus, in the heart, an aching heart at being not acceptable to someone else, being rejected, because that's what the criticism implies. They don't like me, they don't want me. Feeding into old patterns of thinking and feeling, physically, mentally, psychologically. What is it that is hurting? And not to be hurt any further, withdrawing from people, because thought already projects the next hurt, anticipates it, and the pain that is remembered from the last hurt. So it's not a conscious decision necessarily. It may be, but not necessarily conscious decision to avoid people, to protect what? To protect the body from aching and ailing. But what aches and ails it? I'm not talking about chronic sickness right now, although our attachment to the idea of ourselves as a separate entity to be defended and protected is our chronic sickness. Is that what gets hurt? The idea of myself that I have nurtured or been attached to, or simply believe that this is what I am? Hurt, dented, hit, injured, damaged by what someone says. Everything rushing to protect what? Let's look at it as it happens, because it happens to all of us. Unless there's real stable awareness, it happens. Feeling instinctively, reactively protective and defensive about myself, the way I see and feel and think about myself. We call it the image, but it's a very multi-layered, complex thing consisting of memories and imagery, ideas, and the quick perusal, shall I say, of the story of my life. It's present in the mind. My story, my past, my childhood, full of pain, full of difficulty. If it just is seen for a story and seen how it operates right now, being defended, being protected, being attached to, and nurturing that attachment, if that comes into full awareness, it has no power. But usually, I don't quite see it this way. We still nurture our past pains, our past difficulties. Can't let go of them. Past meaning up to this moment. I hear someone saying, well, what's wrong with it? It has to come up. It needs to be seen. Yes, it does. And it can be seen. Can be fully comprehended, held, and looked through. But let's ask ourselves, is there attachment? Not wanting to let go of that seemingly most important part of myself, my history, projected from the past through the present into the future. It may lose in coloration, it may lose in detail, but deep down there is this feeling of me and my existence to be continued, and fear at the thought or hint of its ending. I will disappear, I will be drowned. By this moment of presentness, to really appreciate in the course of a retreat the immense power of thought and memory, not to be underestimated. It's so easily said, well, this is just thought, this is just image. And we're living in the head. Or does it come out of seeing and freedom from that thought and image? When that freedom is not there, a tremendous power of hurt, the power of defensiveness around this idea of myself, to keep it going, to keep it alive, to equate life with the life of my story, the shadowy life, albeit maybe in color. Do we think about our life story in color? The shirt I wore, the red, the purple. Yet it's shadowy. It's memory. And there's attachment to it. Meaning what? What do we mean when we say attached to this idea of myself? What do we mean? Are we looking or just waiting for me to say the next thing? I'm looking too. Don't know what to say next. Do I mean when I say I'm attached to this idea, to this story of myself, do I mean that whenever I think of it, I identify with it? This is me, this internal video, remembrance and projection, thinking this is me. Do I? Is that the thought? That's all of me. Maybe more than the past story, but what I will be in the future. That anticipation of being a better person, more integrated, more balanced, enlightened. Enlightenment to end all of my woes and bring nothing but bliss. It's all in our imagination, isn't it? And thinking about it may stir a bored or indifferent organism, unstimulated, stir it into some energy, some good energy, some exciting energy, looking forward to something I see myself getting or having or being, brings some injection of energy. Some chemicals are stirring in the body. One place I read it once in a German newspaper just the day before retreat, that within a half a second 30,000 chemicals stir within this body. And not just all of those that we imbibed from quote unquote the outside. Inside is also chemical and quite polluted. Polluted with fearful, angry, protective, defensive. or aggrandizing thoughts, which create electrochemical smog in the organism, throughout the organism, in the mind, but also throughout the cells, tissues. So we were looking, what do we mean by attachment? I want this to continue. To continue in pleasant ways as it was in the past. Or compulsively attracted to the fearful incidents, not being able to let go of them. It seems at times like a magnet or magnetism to painful, fearful, past and present states, to think some more about them. Sometimes people have mentioned to me when for a moment fear abates, negative states abate. There's a feeling there's something wrong, something should happen to keep me going. So the organism is indeed getting addicted, if you will, habituated to the stimulation that thoughts and memories have stirred up since the beginning. I didn't read. Somebody came to visit a friend where we were staying who was doing research on addiction in babies who are still in the womb. Addiction to adrenaline secreted by the mother through excitement, fear, or whatever. And the newborn baby, and he was studying progressive stages, addicted to that adrenaline rush. So the fearful thoughts elicit, as well as the pleasurable thoughts, elicit stimulation in the organism to which there exists an attachment from sheer habit, feeling one needs that. And when it's not there, one knows that from beginning days of retreat, doesn't one, maybe even now or tomorrow, feeling like in a state of withdrawal, nothing much happening, the boredom of it all. And then thoughts stirring to bring excitement, which it is capable of doing, and the attachment to that process, which always, if one looks carefully, includes ideas about myself. What will happen to me, or what did happen to me. Is that all there is to me, to you? The attachment, the defensiveness about the idea of myself, to which there is attachment. Don't hurt it, don't question it. It'll feel unsafe then, because habit has built some kind of a foundation of pseudo-safety. It's amazing. What are we feeling safe about in thinking about ourselves? Or in the evoked feelings in the organism through thinking about ourselves one way or another. And yet we cling to it because it feels unsafe without it. So we think. In discussing yesterday in the group what this one person had mentioned, the fear of drowning and disappearing when crickets and sounds was right here, gushing in. Why the fear of it? Is it that it is something so unusual, non-habitual, unknown, unrecognizable, that it rocks the routine foundations of our being? But it needs thinking about it, doesn't it? Or remembering, because being here now without recognition or set ideas, set imagery about myself or you or this environment, nothing scary about it. It is joy and love and a flowing of energy, unobstructed by this network of self-consciousness, when that is in abeyance. There's nothing frightful about that state. And obviously not always when it dawns is there fear accompanying it. Most of the time it isn't. There's no fear. That's the astonishing thing. What could one be afraid of? One is everything. Everything is here. And no feeling of division or separation. No place to go. No place to escape to. No need for escape, because there's no clinging to a meanness, a self-picture or story. At this moment of simply being here. So, right now, is there caught upness in thinking about oneself? Of course, we have evoked plenty by talking about it. But evoking things that happen in self-consciousness, attachment to my story, what will happen to me, what will I do, can be seen, can't it? Right now, it's being evoked. It can be looked at as what it actually is, a memory, a projection, images arising about me as a little child, baby, toddler, aided by photographs we have in our albums, pre-teens, teenager, 20s, 25, in one's 30s. That's an interesting question in itself. Where is that self that was the baby or the toddler? What self am I referring to? Where is that baby, that teenager, the one who was 20 years old? It's memory, isn't it? Memory arising now and visible as memory, like looking at a photograph. And who's looking at it? We think, I am looking at it. I am remembering my past. But what is that I that says, no, what is saying I'm looking at this? Is there an I that is looking at the memory? Or is that I that is looking also idea? There is a picture arising in the mind right now, being 20 or yesterday, when I felt so good or when I felt so bad. And that arises and is seen. But there's no I looking at it. That's how we put it. That's how we talk. And have been talking and heard people talk since we've been able to listen. But there's only thought and seeing. memory and seeing, hearing, listening, awareness, without any proprietor. There's no proprietor of me, of this body, of this hearing, of this earth, of this universe. It's just all happening. Amazing. So, right now, with all the evoked memories, pictures of myself, can they just be transparent, translucent? Or is there some feeling of possession? This is my image of myself. This is how I am. This is what I am. The way I know myself, and the way others have told me that I am. The way others know me, this is how I am. Is that feeling there? This is what I need to protect from people. This vulnerability, vulnerable to hurt. Are those feelings there quite seriously right now? Then let's look at them. Let's look right at them and through them. Let them appear and be seen. And what? What is it all? What gives so much pain, so much longing, so much hope, so much disappointment, so much self-deprecation or self-aggrandizement? What is the substance of it all? Just pictures, memories, and the attachment, meaning habituated to whatever physical sensations are released when a memory arises. Right now, as the memory arises about how I've felt myself most recently, does that connect with physical feelings, or in seeing that image, it doesn't even connect because seeing is happening? Awareness is present. Has it connected to the organism already? Then let's see it, feel it. It's only a reaction to thought and image and remembrance. Very palpable. Heart, breathing, muscles, organs. And birds chirping. Cool air streaming. Faint song of cicadas. It may be too cold for them right now. And letting go of labels of where it hurts in the body. There's no need to localize a pain unless one goes to the doctor. And it's hard enough. Right now, this organism is one whole functioning. It's not divided into whatever we divide it into. It's one whole functioning. And that whole functioning is not separate from air and birds and clouds and trees green and turning. Is that an idea right now? And the thought, I wish I could feel that. Then see that thought as a thought. Because what's talked about, even though it is through the use of words, is not a thought. It is something that's going on for all of us. Only we're not aware of it because we're so plugged up with the circuits of our self-concern. And that sounded judgmental or chiding, but I don't intend to do any of that. It's just completely not indicated. No one's fault to be caught up in self-centeredness. No one's merit to wake up to wholeness. It all happens on its own. Does that help with the burden, the pressure of sorrow or pain? To realize it's no one's fault, no one's, not the parents' fault either, or the teachers, or whoever had inculcating and conditioning influences, because they were all acting out of their conditioned influences. Going back into infinite past. I don't know whether it's infinite or not. Started somewhere. The first thought beyond just being, I am this, I am that, and I want my children to be this or that, because they're mine. That's thought. Deer don't think that way. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it. These little robins we watched this summer, 3 times 3 being hatched. When the time came for the last batch to leave the nest, they were already, 2 of them were always in the forefront. I don't know whether they were always the same 2, I can't tell robins from robins. 2 of them were always there first with the mouths open. I wondered whether by their eagerness and greed, one wants to interpret, the mother was giving preference to them. But sometimes she also stuffed something there way in the dark back where the corner of the 2 came together. And the 2 of them had left, and the 3rd one was still in there on the rim. And sitting there, and sitting there, and sitting there. I was wondering, where's the mother? I wish the mother would be there and encourage it to come on. It's all right, don't be afraid. But she wasn't around. I don't know where she was, probably feeding the other 2 on the ground. We couldn't see them. Not like we did in the suburbs. There you could see the mother feeding the 2 little ones. But here, they had disappeared into thicker growth. But this little one wouldn't take off. Was it thinking? I don't know. Next time we looked, I was sitting on our garden chair, which was not far from the nest. Just hovering there, I would rather say, but this may already be interpretation. But at one point, the 2 little feet were stretched out, was sitting on its rump. We were wondering whether we should start feeding it or something. You always want to do something. And then it was gone. Had left a few traces behind on the white chair. Does it remember? Does the story keep coming up? I doubt it. I don't think the brain is big enough for that luxury. Our brain is here, it's operating. We're a manifestation of it. Can one see it for what it is, and that the thoughts and remembrances and projections are not telling us the truth of what is? It cannot possibly tell us what is true. Can at best be an approximation, a symbolic approximation. But since for the longest time we have not known or realized that what thought tells us is not true, we're plugged up with it, or so it seems. The seeing, the senses, the hearing, all plugged up with interpretation and knowledge of what was, and therefore not able to be directly in touch with what is, what we are, what everything is. But at times, wonder of wonders, the plugs pop. There it is. What? Who can say? One person told me recently, walking from this hall down the meadow, took an eternity, never seemed to stop, because it was always stopped here, the flowers, like jewelry. The footsteps, the grass blades, the ants. And talking about it, I was sobbing. No fear at the unknown, because one had never known an ant or a flower or a footstep, a blade of grass. And one was not separate from it because there was no interpretation going on. I just want to add something. I don't believe we're ever totally stopped up. One can get into this now as one's new sob story, being completely plugged, isolated. Who knows? The movements are there, the crickets are here, the light is shining. Heart is beating, isn't it? And breath is flowing. Is it? It's there, isn't it? It's not breath. It's what is it? The word is seen as a word, but this is going on without the aid of words. Without the need for concepts. It's here, it's happening. And it's not separate from chirping and motor humming. And light on the eyelids. Where are the hands, the feet, the knees, the body? It's all here, isn't it? The words are not the real thing. What is the real thing? Who knows? Don't define it. It is beyond definition, beyond knowing, beyond knowing. But throbbing right here with everything. Where is the separation? I don't know. When thought doesn't stir, there is no sense of time. And yet one can look at the watch and say, we will end here for today.